am Olori. Well, I am Olori. Omoba. Okay, let me get serious. Hi, my name is Aishah Adams. I am a student or a previous student of Ronick Primary School. I went to Ronick Primary School. Well, that's where I graduated my primary school from. But before then, I went to a series of schools. No disrespect at the other schools, but I went to Ronick. And from Ronick, I went to Federal Girls Benin in Edo State. Shout out to Fediven girls. You know, you, you guys, you shaped me in ways that, I still hold dearly. Times I think about school. I think about the bullying. Oh my God, I was like a small chinch when I was in school. But then somehow, I think my developmental days actually did start from there, because you get pushed to the wall to a point where you decide that no more, and I got to that point, and it was, I have to turn things around while I'm still here, Well, so Federal Benin gave me that. It gave me an amazing room in my final year with people that were quite vocal. Ironically, some of these people, I'm still very much in touch with them, I remember Precious Ogbomo. Shout out to Precious Ogbomo. I remember Sarime. We used to have conversations in the room, talk about the future, things, just joke about things that we were going to become and stuff like that, So I feel like, those were really formative years for me. They were the years that I used to look at people who exhibited things that I liked and I wanted to be. So it's ironic that these days I do work that puts me in front of the camera or puts me in front of people, because here I was back then, a very timid person who literally couldn't speak in front of two people. Like, you can't put me in the room and say, I shall go and stand in front of the room and talk to two people. How much more public speaking on stages?
So when did that change?
I think it started gradually when I was in secondary school, even though it was still a struggle. In fact, I remember a really terrible incident that happened in my SS2. There was this young junior that was a friend of the family. So my elder sisters had also gone to the same school with me. And this particular girl had, continued to be my friend. But then some of my mates, very silly people, decided to embarrass me, like for no reason, It's just how, when you watch those high school movies, the gang people just want to play on the nerdy girl or the girls that they don't think are up to their par, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's what happened. And it really embarrassed me and all of that. But I think in those days I used to wish that I could reinvent myself. And I used to have a lot of personal conversations with myself on, oh, Aisha, when this happens, you're going to do this. Though, funny enough, thing will happen, I'll not do that. I'll not go back and beat myself up and say, no, why didn't you? You should have done this, you should have said that. Okay, the next time you see the person, you're going to say this, So I think it started from there. And then it moved on to the program that I did shortly after I left Federal Benin, where I had these amazing people. Shout out to Peju, Toyin, Omileke. I had just like a gap year kind of thing. And I think there I started to really grow myself. I started to grow the person that I was. I had amazing friends. I had a group of friends. We used to hang out together. We used to study together. And we all were able to achieve what we went out to do in that program. And then moved on to going to Anifa Prep. Oh, may God bless Dr. Oseni of blessed memory. He was my guardian. He was like a second father to me. In fact, my dad would say, go and meet your father. Yeah, Dr. Oseni took me in like his daughter and treated me as such.
It was
And
before university.
yes, this was before university. And Anifa did shape me in many beautiful ways. It made me realize like I had the power to do whatever it is I wanted to do. I met amazing people. Anifa Prep, just gave you that oomph. It gives you that. It felt like Anifa was like a social club of, oh, you went to Anifa, oh, okay, ticket to talk to amazing people, that kind of thing.
So was that like a school?
Yeah, it was. It was like a pre-uni school, kind of.
Okay.
You know, everyone that was there was sort of studying to go to uni to be the best version of themselves, that kind of thing. Yeah. So from there, I went to Unilag. Then Unilag. So jam. What?
What did you study?
I studied microbiology. That's not what I set out to study. I wanted to study medicine. But I didn't, so my results were withheld around that time. They released the results, but they didn't release the results. I don't even know. You know, some funny stuff that used to happen with JAM. So eventually, Aishah got into school, and then I said, okay, you know what? I'm not staying at home anymore. I've stayed at home for a number of years. Okay, I think I'm just going to do a PhD in microbiology, go on to do a PhD. I don't know what it is in, because I'm quite decisive like that. When I was going to move from medicine, I needed to have a strategy that was going to get me to wherever it was. So I sat down, I said, okay, do I do microbiology, do I do biochemistry? Okay, I think I'm more a chemistry person though, but I didn't want the stress of moving between Unilag and Idiaraba. Ironically, when I got into Unilag, I see that I really loved biochemistry courses. I always did very well in my biochemistry courses. And I started to wonder if it would have actually been better if I'd done, biochemistry. But no regret, I did microbiology. And whilst I was in my final year, I've always had a love, let's be like that, I've always had a love for people. I've always had the love to care for people, more importantly. And that's why I was interested in the medical space. In fact, there was a time whilst I was in school, I actually almost went back to start again from year one for medicine. But my family was like, just finish this one. When you finish, you can decide to go back and do a second degree. And I thought, okay, that's something that I'm open to. But a beautiful thing happened, and I got to know about public health. I started to find out about public health. And I saw that, oh my God, this is actually another way through which I could live the medical life I really wanted to live. So I think when I was the final year, I had options. It was either go back to the medicine or go on and do a master's in public health. And I started to research what I needed to do the public health. And may Allah bless my friend, my dear friend, Aishah Adams, because we had similar paths, she also was intending to do medicine, eventually did microbiology. So we used to have similar conversations, and she was like, oh, she's looking to do public health. I'm like, oh, that's so amazing. And that sort of also strengthened my resolve to do public health. So I went on to do public health in the University of Wolverhampton. So I moved to the UK. And when I was going, I would say that I have always known that I wanted to make the world a better place. Anyone who knows me for as far back as just before I entered uni, would say that I've always had this idealistic life, ideology about life. I've always been a person like, oh, you know what, let's make the world a better place. I used to speak so, like, people will be like, hey, you're always so mature, why are you talking? And I'm like, no, we can't just leave this person like this. We have to do something. I've always been about care for people, transform their lives. And I think it really comes from my childhood, really. Because when I think back, I see that I grew up in a house, I would joke about the fact that I grew up in a Fuji house of commotion. And it's not really a Fuji house of commotion, right? Because my dad has only one wife, my mom. However, my dad and my mother, his right rib, are people who just bring in everybody. Let them not hear that you have a problem. You're inside the house. My dad hears that this person's, he has brought you in. My mom hears, she tells her husband, yeah, there's a place in the house. Before you know it, the house was getting big. We actually at some point was cooking on firewood because there were a lot of people living in the house. Over 20 people were living in our house at some point. My father has just 5 kids. But the people that my father has raised, I am sure they are in the hundreds. And that's because he has this thing of, I have to impact on you. And I tell you something, nobody comes into my house the same way they entered. At the minimum, you will go a notch better than how you came in. If you came in without a skill, you leave with a skill. If you came in with just a skill, you leave with a skill and education. If you will be educated one way or the other. My dad is the kind of person that you tell, okay, what do you want to do? You tell him you want to be a tailor, he will send you to a tailoring school that will teach you in a way that will make you be empowered. In fact, I remembered he helped somebody go to a school for mechanics, like a standard school where, you know, the person can actually work abroad. And it just used to baffle me. Like, I used to be taken with their generosity and their kindness and their commitment to see people grow. So I'll say that somehow, you know, my upbringing, the way we were raised, made us people. My dad will make you kneel down to greet the chauffeur. You would kneel down to greet everybody. You would respect everybody that is older than you. It doesn't matter whether you are his child or not. Everybody has to be respected. He will say things like, you know, Baba mi, Egba, Iya mi, Tao, Tanye, which loosely translates to, your father is the minister, your mother is the deputy governor. Who are you? What he was trying to tell us often was like, remember to be somebody for you and not be the person who leeches on other people. Now that's talk. Another thing he used to write and say to us every time he would send, he would end the letter with, remember the daughter of whom you are. Now, how can I not remember my roots? And so through everything that would happen to me in life, I would remember that I have a father who has labored, that I have a mother who has been dogged in supporting her children. And I would remember that I do not want to disappoint these people. You know, and that always kept me on track. There were several opportunities to go the bad way, you know, several opportunities, you know. And I had some friends, you know, that were not exactly, you know, the people to, but despite that, I think that I just found myself constantly staying on track. Because I just remember my mother, and I asked myself, like, if my mother was to find out that I did this, what would it do to her? If my parents, and I know that these people deeply care about us. My dad made a lot of sacrifices for us. My mother made sure that she always, you know, she always strove to give us the best. And so for me, the way that I appreciated that was to be somebody. It was to always strive to ensure that the name was honored, you know. And there's when you're going on Unilag Road, there used to be the signpost. It would say, a good name cannot be bought. And those things, you know, look at the things that influence me. I just, you know, these things, and I just keep them in my head.
Pay attention to these.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I went to Unilag, and I lived in Moremi. The Moremi of the days of Moremi, not the ones that we're seeing now. And it's ironic that I actually became a better Muslim living there. And I remember when I got to Unilag and people will see me cover my hair, like they'll see me tie a scarf. And they'll say things like, she's going to change soon. I'll be like, I'm not. They'll be like, oh, we've seen people like you, don't worry. And honestly, before my very eyes, you know, I had, you know, really close friends who we got into school together, who became, you know, whatever, things I can't say. And I saw them go on a decline. And I'll be like, this person has now become this. I thought this person used to say she couldn't do this. How come it's now suddenly convenient for her to be this way? And I will think about it. And when I think about it, I will make a resolve. Like, you know what? I am not going to become somebody that will not make her parents proud. And I think that there was also that commitment to honoring my body and keeping it holy and keeping it. And this was even before I became, you know, spiritually conscious, you know. This was just even at the time when I was just there, you know. And it was just, for me, I always had a moral compass that kept me on track. And it always went back to honoring myself, honoring my parents, and more importantly, honoring God through how I showed up in the world. I think I've always been a person of faith, a person that was, you know, spiritually driven. I love God, and I have always wanted things that drew me to God. but at the time I was still trying to find faith. And then I did eventually. And the moment I did, it was just like, I ran with it. And that led me to becoming even more intentional in who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world?
Yeah.
And
speaking of who you want to be, you wear multiple hats.
yes.
When we speak this moment out here, oh, I've done this, or I have this, I'm like, okay, like it's never ending. So can you walk us through those many hats you wear? I know you're a therapist, you run an NGO, you have a lot on your plate that you do. You're a producer. Yes.
Yes, I am.
You are. So can you walk us through the many hats?
I would say that in one short phrase, I am a creative solutionist. Yeah. I'm really all about solutions. I would say, my sister always says that, Aisha, you're one of the most optimistic people I know. And I think the reason why she says that is because I don't see obstacles. Don't tell me something is not achievable. That's my light bulb moment. That thing, we must find a solution. We will and we shall. Because I feel like when there is life, there is hope. And when there is hope, there is nothing that can stop you. And I'm a person of faith. And think about it. Everything in the heavens and the earth was created by God. Every single thing. And then I want something as minute as money. And then I'm like, will God give me the one who created everything in the heavens and the earth? Of course he can. And I have that thing, that conviction that, I can be who I want to be. I can achieve anything I want to achieve. And I think that's actually what led me through all the different parts that parts of me that I started to explore. I would say that another thing that helped me is, it helped me because how do I put it? I get bored easily. Like I'm just like, okay. So, I'm that kind of person, like, I think I don't even stop to look and say, oh, you just did this. Give myself an part. I think I really do that. I'm like, okay, next thing. What's the next thing? That kind of thing. Like, on to the next. And it was because I think I grew up in a house where my father didn't sit to gloat over some success he has. He's like, okay, we celebrate. This thing happened. We buy card. We throw a party. The next morning he wakes you up and he says, what are you doing next? Now you have closed that chapter. That chapter is closed. What's the new chapter? So I think that also sort of shaped me. And it gave me that. If I tell my mom, oh, I want to do something, she'll tell me, is that the only one way you can do it? If I tell my sister, oh, I want to do something, they'll be like, is that the best? As if strive for excellence. So, and there's something as in Islam, it's called ihsan. And what we are required to be is not to be perfect, because God did not create us perfect. But what we are required to be is to be excellent. And excellence is achievable by everybody. And what is excellence? Excellence is that you strive to be the best version of yourself every single day. And because that's how I live my life, I'm able to wear the many hats I wear. I'm able to speak. I love to speak. I love to inspire people to be the best version of themselves. What I realize is that sometimes people have those goals as well, the same goals I have, the same dreams I have. What is different between you and I is the inability to empower themselves with their self-talk. Their self-talk gives them negativity, and they need somebody who believes in them. People seek validation. And so for me, it's like, how can I use my voice to be a sort of reason for someone to find goodness in themselves and become that? I write because I know that people read. Like, some people love to read. And for me, I learned a lot from reading. I grew a lot through reading. And so I find, like, I just told you I used to read a signpost, that said this. I used to do this that said that. And so I found and so I wanted to also contribute my own words to adding value to people. Hence, why I started writing. And I started writing, more importantly, about the pain I had been through. And why? Because I didn't want other people to have to go through that pain. And so I thought to myself that even if I couldn't write, fiction, I could write about an experience that was hard to ensure that somebody else doesn't, have to experience that. I am a therapist because I have been through trauma, multiple level trauma. And truly that I remember people will say things like, they'll call me, my friends will call me and they'll be like, Aisha, you are so strong. I'll be like, what are you talking about? Have you met me? Have you met me? Have you met the girl that is losing her mind from, the sheer pain that I was experiencing? And then they're like, Aisha, you're so strong. And now in retrospect, I realized that, I have a poker face. So by that I mean I have this face that doesn't show emotion. You literally can't tell, well, except I really want to be excited. If I want to show you that I'm excited, okay, you see it. But I could actually have that no feeling, no emotion. I was born in May. Yes, I'm a May 3rd girl. So I have that poker face that makes you feel like, this girl is not feeling nothing. And it's something that it's actually a facade because I have depth to me. I'm very emotional and my emotion runs very deep. And because I know that, and I know that if you wear your emotion on your sleeve, it puts you at risk. So I protect myself with my facade. And I think it's worked, right? So I have that poker face, and so people are not really able to tell what I'm experiencing, how much pain. In fact, I've had people tell me things like, when I see you, I just feel peace. I'm like, this person that you are seeing is like there's a war going on inside me. And these were times where I literally was borderline suicidal. And then you're telling me that I'm strong. And I used to think, if I am strong and I have this much support, what about the people who don't have any kind of support? Who caters to them? How do they get through it? And that's what gave birth to Sidiko.
Oh, I really want to hear about Sidiko.
And Sidiko was born from pain. I had experienced divorce. And it was my second divorce. And I had a child. And it was hurtful for me and one of the most painful experiences in my life because I am one who actually struggled to have a child. Before my daughter, I had 6 miscarriages. So when I then have a daughter, I want to care and love for her, even more than I was loved for and cared for. What could I do for women and children? What could I do for women and children? And my answer came through the pain I was experiencing. I remember where I was, it was my second semester, my master's, and I remember we were talking about health protection and health improvement, and the topic was on stigmatization. And honestly, I went to that class literally feeling dead. I was in a lot of pain, emotional pain, and that pain, I could feel it all over my body. Everybody was asking me, Aisha, what's wrong with you? Aisha, what's wrong with you? And I could barely even write. But when the tutor was talking, her name was Deborah. And Deborah was talking, and I just said, oh my God, this is it. This is my work. I am going to work with stigmatized people. I'm going to work with the marginalized. And who were they? The widows and divorcees, single mothers. I was going to be the shoulder for them. My organization was going to be about supporting them and empowering them to get back on their feet. And that was my light bulb moment. It was May. And I was like, it was in May. I remember vividly. And it's been 11 years now since we set up this. And I was like, you know what? I am setting up an organization to cater for them. And I remember just scribbling on my book. Like my book that day it had scribbles all over. So after the class, I sit down and I'm like, okay, what is it going to be about? Then I started to organize. And so I knew, okay, I was going to support and empower them. And I thought, okay, I'm interested in health advocacy as well. How's I going to put that into the work I was doing? Because health advocacy is literally like selling health. It's more like prevention, giving them the tips on what to do. And I thought these were the people that were most in need of those kinds of prevention because they would have maternal and child health issues that they cannot afford. Isn't it better if they're empowered with the information beforehand so that they can cater to those needs? And so it was support and empowerment, health advocacy, but then for specific health issues like maternal and child health, like NCDs, non-communicable diseases, and also mental health, because I understood what it meant to go through those things. I understood that there will be mental instability. I understood that there will be psychological imbalance, and I wanted to help them. And I also knew that I was really passionate about outreach. I'm the kind of person that loves to go to communities and just extend kindness to people. And I thought that there were loads of single mothers out there, especially in the extremely poor communities, and I could be a shoulder for them. How I was going to do it, I hadn't figured it out. But over a couple of months, I kept building on that, fine-tuning, thinking, brainstorming. And I would say that it took me about 6 months to have all of those thoughts together, to have my logo worked on. So I sent out information to someone who told me she was going to design it, to put up my logo. My logo is very symbolic. It wasn't my own idea. It was an original idea of what I wanted to communicate, or the work I was trying to do. And so if you look at the Sidiko logo, you would notice that it's love. Because it's really like, it's coming from a place of love. It's a heart of gold. It's that we love you, and your pain, which is why people are stigmatizing you, does not make you less. And despite all of that, we love you and we extend kindness to you.
Yeah, and I can see the kindness in the streets.
Yes, yes.
Tell us about that.
The street kitchen is another of the babies that Sidiko gave me. So my street kitchen was inspired by an incident that happened, around my house. So it's like we had always intended to start the outreach, from the beginning of intending to start Sidiko. I talked about, taking 6 months to plan and strategize for what we're going to do. So it was clear that we're going to do an outreach. And I really wanted to do a global outreach, because I had also been part of different kinds of work like that. I had volunteered whilst I was living in the UK with a couple of organizations that were serving people in those kinds of spaces. So I was interested. And I was interested because I felt like Africans didn't get those kinds of support. Like if something, Boko Haram was happening in Nigeria, I didn't see any aid coming to Nigeria for Boko Haram, even though loads of people were getting displaced. But then Syria happened, there was funding. This happened, there is funding. People are craving, and Nigerians are contributing to the funding of those kinds of causes. And I didn't see anything happening for Nigeria. So I immediately identified that there was a niche. There was a big space, for humanitarian work in Nigeria, and most in Africa, really. And I thought that charity begins at home. And so I thought it was better to kickstart the work, from Nigeria. Hence why we started Sidiko there. And now for the street kitchen, I had a neighbor who she was my neighbor because she had a shop close to my house at the time, and it was like a mini salon. And she also used to cater to my daughter and I, now and then. So she had sent her daughter to me to say, we haven't eaten since morning. At the time when she sent her daughter, it was probably about 4 o'clock, 5 p.m. in the evening. And I know she had 4 kids, so I was worried, like 4 of you. I thought, you guys haven't eaten. She said, my mom asked me to come and meet you to say that, is there anything you can give us? So I was like, okay, come, And I checked in the house. And then there were, now we have rat issues. So there were some things that rat had, and I was like throwing those ones away and then giving her. And she was like, please don't throw those ones away. I was like, no, don't worry. She said, no, even those ones, we can benefit from it. I said, no, but she said, no, don't worry. We know how we're going to work with it. And, she left with the food, and it got me thinking. And I was like, I looked around, and I'm like, okay, there are houses here, and this woman is around us, and she has someone she can go and ask. What about those people that don't have anybody to go and ask? Like, their neighbor is equally as bad as them. Who were they going to talk to? And I reached out to my sister and one of my closest friends, Yinka Bakare. And I'm like, Yinka, I have this idea. Like, people are so hungry. There are loads of times I have food in my house that, like, I'm not the food kind of person. And maybe on those occasions, this is something we can start. I'm sure you also have foodstuffs in your house that you don't eat, for days and weeks. Like, what if we could do this thing where we just go to the street, we go to the car park, and we cook right there and feed people? What do you think? And she was like, it sounds like a good idea. And then I tell my sister, and she's like, it actually sounds like a good idea. And before I could, Inka, it's a good thing to have accountants around you. I'm like, Inka, you're a food person because she cooks and does stuff like that. We did a quick calculation and I was like, this is something we can run. Like with 20,000 naira, this can happen. But then I just started immediately because I know the kind of person that I am. Whatever I start, I'm consistent with. So I don't start something I know I'm not going to continue. And so I give deep thoughts to anything I'm doing. And I'm like, is this something I'm just going to do as a one-off? Or is this going to be, and I thought it just fit right into our outreach arm of the organization, especially because of the work we were doing in the marginalized space. And I think that poor people are very marginalized and stigmatized. People condemn them for being poor, when in fact they're some of the most hardworking people you would ever meet. And I thought that giving them hope was important. It tied with the goal of the organization, which was to nourish optimism, and that's how we started. And the idea of the street kitchen is really to start out community development, but in a very small scale of creating hunger and giving hope to the people in those communities. And we have, several years after data collected, we have been able to, through the work we have done, made impact in more than 50 communities across Nigeria. After the first 1 year, we thought, well, we're limiting this work to Lagos. And I think that's one of the unique things about, the work I do with Sidiko. It's that we are an organization that are really passionate about serving the marginalized, irrespective of religious, ideologies, ethnicity, or, language. So it doesn't matter whether you're Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, you're a human being, you're going through, hard times, we support you. That's it. It's really about reviving that human spirit of giving people without labels. Take out the labels and just be kind. Be a good human being, And I saw that the project really, it shocked people. People were really like, oh, who are you giving to? I'm like, no. And I remember most of the videos, if you check online and you see any videos that speaks to the work we do, you would hear us say we serve people irrespective of religious ethnicity or gender. We just want people to know that they are loved, they are cared for, and that there is hope for a better tomorrow.
So, like, how many families have you, as the initiative, been able to cater to?
We're 11 years unofficially, 10 years officially. And I know that we have done about 500,000. We have been able to reach 500,000 people across more than 30 locations across 3 continents. Currently in Nigeria, we're working across 19 states, and we have worked across almost 10 countries, 9 countries thereabouts, across Africa, across Malaysia. And so, yeah, we are really big on reviving hope, giving, making people remember that they're worth it, their life is worth it, their struggles are seen. And if God can send us to extend kindness to them, and they keep hoping, then who knows, tomorrow can actually be the better day they're looking for. And we have seen the project actually touch people in ways. We have seen other people try to copy us, and at first it used to be like, oh, why can't we all just come together? But for me, I'm just like, that's how I inspire somebody to add to the color of the world. I can't go everywhere, but the work can go everywhere. The inspiration can go everywhere. The bringing back the human spirit can go everywhere. And I'm really thankful that God has used me to do such amazing work. But yeah, we have been able to touch about 500,000 lives.
That's great. Okay, so tell me about the support lounge.
The support lounge. That's from what I have been saying, you would notice that I just like being there for people. I think that the least I can be for someone when they're going through hard times is just to be a shoulder. I think that's like really minimum, And I feel like, and giving them my shoulder doesn't mean, it's like just lean on me, Take the energy for one is enough for two. The energy for two is enough for four. And somehow, even as you think they are leaning on you, you're also getting support from them somehow, And I see like, a lot of the time you think you're being a bridge for someone, when in fact you're also crossing the bridge by virtue of building that bridge. And so you think you're helping someone by extending kindness when you're also helping yourself, because if you didn't build that bridge, you would all have also struggled to pass, cross the road you're trying to create a bridge for. The support lounge is basically that place where we help people to face up to the reality of what they're going on inside, trauma, challenges, whatever it is that life has dished them, and letting them know that there is space for you for support. You see, everybody really wants to have a good life, right? Everybody wants to feel fulfilled. At the end of life, you want to look back and say, my life was beautiful. I lived a good life. For me, I impacted on, I touched lives. And the support lounge is a space where we get to help people come to the realization that they are human, that it is okay to be in touch with your emotions, that it is okay to have hurt. However, rather than try to pretend that it's not there, that taking ownership of the pain and leveraging on the pain to birth purpose is actually a better way to approach life. It's the place where we tell you that it's okay to fail, but fail forward. It's where we tell you that your scars make you even more beautiful. It's a place where we help you come to the realization that you have a gift, that every single person has a gift, and they just need the right support to help them tap into that amazingness inside of them. And so we do that through speaking engagements, through the books I write, through the therapy work I do, through the coaching, support, to training and workshops, and even the ones we do with organizations looking for, holistic well-being for their staffs, through just showing up really and being the example that I want to see in the world.